With the war in Gaza continuing because Hamas is still refusing to accept the ceasefire deal on offer, and Hamas is still refusing to hand over the hostages they still hold, living and dead, and after Hamas attacks and aid distribution centres, of course, run by Israel and the US, and those attacks have created uncertainty around aid delivery. Well, with all this unfolding, international pressure is growing on Israel over claims of starvation in Gaza. This despite clear statements from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that there is no starvation in Gaza because thousands upon thousands of tonnes of aid has been trucked and parachuted into Gaza for month after month. But around the world, people are not accepting the information coming from Israel. They are forming their views based on other sources.
But we need to make sure that people who are innocent, including the young boy who people will have seen that image of, just breaks your heart. A one-year-old boy is not a Hamas fighter.
People in Britain are revolted at seeing what they're seeing on their screens.
Like everyone, I'm very distressed by the images I've seen.
Some of those kids that's real starvation stuff. I see it, and you can't fake that.
This young boy, there are various images of him. It has been very powerful. It clearly has stirred a lot of global reaction. I mean, how have these sort of images made you feel personally?
Well, it's not just that image, but many of them just break your heart.
Yeah, images. Images are the reference point for so many world leaders. In fact, even the extreme left is now citing Donald Trump as a truth teller on Gaza because of his response to the images. That's how surreal this debate has become. These, of course, are images that come out of Gaza. Images approved in the main by Hamas, organised, approved and described by Hamas, part of the terrorist group's active propaganda machine. And this propaganda push has seen many people refer to this image, this harrowing image of one-year-old Mohammed al-Matuk. But as I explained here last night, this poor little boy suffers from cerebral palsy and other conditions. A terrible plight, of course, especially in a war zone. But it's not a simple matter of starvation then, is it? As we can see from this wider shot, clearly Mohammed's older brother Jude and his mother are not starving. All kinds of images set up, doctored and edited come out of Gaza. They've done all that all along. That stuff's come out of Gaza all along. Hamas controls the information and it provides the media narrative. Too many in the media and politics go along for the ride. They love the anti-Israel narrative. No one can sensibly use these images or this information as proof of mass starvation. But so many do. They run the information and the context provided by Hamas, an Islamist extremist terrorist group. We know how much aid has gone into Gaza, and therefore that if there is any starvation in Gaza, it must be the fault of Hamas for keeping the aid from its people. But also we need to ask why there is such an emotive focus on children starving. Why would adults be fed and the children not? Wouldn't parents ensure that children are fed first? This just points to the propaganda element of what we're seeing. There's much that doesn't add up. And none of this is to deny, of course, that people are suffering. It is terrible. Of course, the war must end. And of course, as bizarre as it is, in this conflict, Israel has a responsibility for feeding Palestinian people while combating those people's government and their military leadership. But the hysteria about starvation is clearly calculated, clearly part of a propaganda campaign, and obviously it's working, with more pressure again falling onto Israel, while Hamas, the real persecutors of the Palestinian people, are hardly mentioned. At least the federal opposition leader, Susan Lee, understands that. And because for all the trauma and all the empathy that we have for the people of Gaza, the pathway to peace is clear.
we're seeing such distressing images?
I have been distressed, and I don't mind saying that over and over again, but I still make the same points that I have before. It's very complex on the ground. It's not something that we can make judgments about every move that is made. There are reports of Hamas interrupting the flow of aid and carrying on its atrocious activities at this time. Now, if we want the war to end, and we all do, we know the simplest, quickest way is for Hamas to surrender and release the hostages.
Well said. Susan Lee shows a much greater understanding of the situation with more moral clarity than the Prime Minister. With former Minister, now Labor backbencher Ed Husic apparently pushing in caucus for the government to recognise a state of Palestine, Albanese is reported to have said that claims there is no starvation in Gaza are beyond comprehension. In other words, Albanese believes he knows more about what's happening in Gaza than the Israeli Prime Minister does, and he's saying the Israeli Prime Minister is lying. There he goes again, fanning the anti-Israeli flames, pushing the demonisation of Israel based on a media image of a poor young cerebral palsy victim in Gaza. Governments should make calls based on facts. Albanese, we are told, has not even bothered to watch the recorded evidence of how Hamas triggered this war. Yet he pretends to know how to end it based on one image. One of the most complex and long-running struggles on the planet, and we have leaders attacking it with all the superficiality of social media. In the real world, the war must end. The suffering must stop. And that means Hamas must surrender.